the coming season. We are completing our webinar series with TESOL, Career Path Development, the Professional Learning Network. I'm Liz England. I'm here with Linda Chu in Arizona, and Melina Jimenez is here from Florida. Our speaker today, we're so thrilled to invite and to have with us Afroza Akhter Tina. We call her Tina for short. And Beatriz is with us from Bolivia. Mohammed Zuli, one of our previous speakers, we thoroughly enjoyed his presentation, is here from Morocco. So as always with TESOL CPD webinars, we are a great mixture of people who teach English around the world. Thank you all for coming today. This session is being recorded. You've just received note of that. I wanted to briefly note that we have enjoyed this year over 20 webinars given by new, young, innovative thinkers around the world. Some of them are very famous members of TESOL executive. I'm thinking of our colleague Okon Efyong did a wonderful session on colored English, talking about the use of African and African-American varieties of English. We had speakers from across North Africa, the Gulf. We've had speakers from the US, from South America, from all over the world. We are so lucky to have speakers who are willing to join us. We've just recently gotten permission from TESOL International. Tina will receive, Mohammed also are going to receive certificates. We have kind of had a little fight to make this happen, but it did. And we have the format. Linda and I will be working on getting those out to you soon. Our heartfelt thanks to everyone who's presented on our series this year. Please remember, we're having a social gathering coming up on the 29th of June. We're going to meet for what will be mostly breakout sessions because we rarely have enough time to chat. We just do our presentations, we talk about the topic, and then we go. But we are going to have kind of a social gathering where folks can go into breakout rooms, talk in a small group, come back together at the end. Our group will go, our TESOL leadership team in the Career Path Development PLN, we're going to go into a kind of reflection time and quiet time over the summer. We've worked extremely hard. We have created all kinds of products and services for our members. Over 1,200 members, around 600 in TESOL International, about 600 on Facebook. Some are the same, we don't know exactly, but we have a lot of people interested in our group, and we're so fortunate to have somehow connected with the needs of so many. And I know for me, I learn so much from everyone. And I feel like we offer, we give, and we get. Yeah, volunteer service is two ways. So many times we feel like we give, we give, we give. No, we also get something back in return. And this is the power of professional service, that it's two-way. We will continue with that mission as we go into the fall of 2021. And we look forward to welcoming you, your colleagues and friends, more newcomers to our group as we move forward. I'm going to introduce quickly our speaker. I've already mentioned her name. Tina is with us. Tina is a member of our Climb Mentor Mentee Driven Mentor Program in Career Path Development PLN. And she serves as senior lecturer at Daffodil International University in Dhaka, Bangladesh. In addition to being one of our fond new participants in TESOL CPD PLN, Tina is also an established teacher and well-respected professional colleague in Dhaka. Our first speaker from Bangladesh, welcome to you, Tina, and we're going to let you share your screen and begin your presentation. Over to you, Tina. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Liz, for the beautiful introduction. Well, as we all know, that TESOL Career Path Development focuses on educational backgrounds, our teaching experiences, research projects, as we move ahead along our career paths. And well, obviously this webinar series is a part of that. And I'm very glad today to be a part of this career path development journey. And I would like to thank TESOL Career Path Development, specifically Liz, Linda, Melina, and the entire team for giving me this wonderful opportunity to share my ideas and experiences with you all today through this webinar. Well, I would like to please allow me some time to share my screen. I think I need permission. I'm still unable to share my screen. Okay. Yes, that's great. Is it visible?
Yes, but right now we see it in edit mode. So if you could, yeah, perfect.
Okay, thank you so much. Now, as you all know, that today I would like to share a little experiences of mine regarding the use of different types of alternative assessments in everyday classroom practices. And well, of course, before getting into the main presentation, I'd like to definitely focus on the fact, why did I choose this topic? Well, I must say that I developed this interest after completing a MOOC actually, which was on alternative assessment tools. And after doing that specific online course, I was seriously motivated to experience different types of alternative tools to assess my everyday lessons. And that is how actually I am highly motivated to share my ideas. That's why I wanted to share my ideas with you all today. Now, we'll obviously, as English teachers, we all know what is an alternative assessment. Still, I'd like to focus on it a little because this alternative assessment idea actually focuses on students' performance on tasks that require extended time, complex thinking, integration of subject matter learning, and of course, a lot of other things. So specifically, it focuses on students' performance on specific tasks. So that is the basic idea. And obviously, it determines what students can and cannot do in contrast to what they do or do not know. So that is where actually my interest lies. Well, I wanted to know what my students know and what actually they come up after the lesson. Well, definitely, I would like to focus on a little regarding the difference between traditional and alternative assessments. We all know about different types of traditional assessments because as a Bangladeshi teacher or in my university, we also have traditional types of assessments. For example, we have semester system in our university, and there we have two specific exams, one midterm and one final term examination. But the interesting thing is that in my university, I have that kind of opportunity to assess my students the way I want, because other than those 65 marks, well, a teacher has that freedom in my university to assess his or her students. And yes, of course, traditional assessment tools requires learners to display their knowledge in a predetermined way. So obviously, my students know that ultimately after 1.5 months, they will be assessed through their midterm exam, and later 1.5 months, they will be assessed through their final examination. So these are quite predetermined. But the interesting thing about alternative assessment is that they don't know actually how I will be assessing their performance every day if I not brief them, at the beginning of the lesson or at the beginning of this semester. And even if I brief, the interesting thing is, well, I may have that opportunity to change the tools or strategies in terms of assessing their lessons or in terms of assessing their everyday learning. Well, these are the two online courses which I wanted to mention. Well, before getting into the main course, Art of Everyday Classroom Assessment of English Language Learners, I, along with the other teachers of my university, did this e-teacher orientation course on assessment of English language learners, where we got the idea of how to use Blackboard, and not only Blackboard, but a lot of interesting ways through which we can engage our students, like engaging ourselves through forum, discussion forum, and lots of other ways, of course. Now, we have a lot of ideas regarding alternative assessments, and these are some. And I believe, as we all are English teachers over here in this session today, so we are familiar with almost all of them, but still I'd like to mention some. For example, plotting a family tree, conducting interview, creating infographic, which is very popular, specifically with my students, actually, writing how-to manual, and presenting opposite points of view. Sometimes we also do debate, not directly may reflect, I mean, alternative assessment idea, but yes, obviously debate interests my students a lot to speak in the class. Producing multimedia interactive posters. Well, I must say that students enjoy creating posters very much. And yes, of course, designing travel brochure. This is very much popular with the tourism and hospitality management department students, because as an English teacher, I have to teach English over there as well. And then reflection diaries, which I'm planning this time. And dramatization, gathering real world examples, portfolio assessment, observation-based assessment, questionnaires and surveys, and assessment cards, and thousands of other ideas, of course. Well, now, to measure students' gradual development and assessment was the main concern in my mind while doing that course. And after completing that course successfully, well, it stuck actually me that, well, I have to measure my students' learning or their understanding every day, because that's important. That is how I personally would be able to improve my lesson, to improvise the lesson plan if needed. And I can also develop as a teacher if I get direct feedback from them after each and every lesson. So here I would like to mention actually 4 specific tools or strategies in my presentation. The first one is reflection diaries, and the second one is e-portfolios. And yes, I have 2 other types. And well, individual assessment cards is something very, very unique, and it was totally new for me. And also along with that, progressive I can statements. The idea of using I can statements, well, this was also totally new for me. And I must say that individual assessment cards actually is very, very effective in terms of getting instant feedback. And of course, to promote learner confidence after each of the lessons, I believe that these progressive I can statements work well exclusively. Now, regarding portfolio as an alternative assessment, I believe we all know what a portfolio is, but here I would like to mention on the e-portfolios, which I didn't do earlier. That's because I was physical in the classroom. We were in the physical classrooms, and I didn't have this in my mind that someday my students can also prepare e-portfolios. But suddenly after March 2020, I had this idea in my mind that, well, the thing which they were doing physically in the classroom with their pen, paper, and lots of other stuffs, why not doing all these things online? So that is how I have, merged from general portfolio ideas to e-portfolios. And yes, of course, it enables students to reflect their real performance. I found in one of the courses that my students were very happy in terms of presenting their bulky portfolios in front of the class, in front of me. They were enjoying, and they were even not shy to share their experiences, I mean, regarding which they didn't learn, which they couldn't learn, or where they couldn't perform better. So yes, of course, that's an interesting way. And my e-portfolio contained lots of things, but generally an e-portfolio may contain different types of files, because as an English language teacher, I personally provide a lot of text, pictures, videos, audio video recordings, YouTube videos, of course, to engage my students in the classwork. And of course, they include writing samples and several drafts, of course, first, second, third. Gradually, they can move on with the drafts and project papers, homework, classwork, of course, and extracurricular activities, which they enjoy the most, I have found. Now, the second important tool which I'd like to mention is reflection diaries. But I must say that this is the first time in this semester where I am very much conscious about, making my students come up, prepare these reflection diaries, and at the end of this semester, how their diaries would look like. I don't know, but they have just started working. And well, I was highly motivated to work with these reflection diaries after getting into that CLIMB project, which is also a part of the TESOL Career Path Development Program. Well, my diary actually reflects on specific ideas, specific things, but yes, obviously these three things could be in the diaries. And yes, the teaching and learning activities that have taken place should be there, of course, because if we don't have proper documentation regarding what has been taught and what did I learn, well, obviously one of the most important thing will be missing. So obviously this would be there. What my students learned, what did I try to teach, and lots of other things regarding this. And then providing opportunity to search for and express their learning in a personal way. So expressing their learning in personal way is also something very, very interesting. They like to write a lot, although we may say that as a teacher, I found a lot of grammatical errors in their writing. Still, even after having a lot of errors, they enjoy writing in their own personal ways. So that is also interesting, which I have a plan to include in my reflection diaries this time. And obviously a reflection diary can relate, and with reflection diary, obviously, they can relate and apply their learning to their own teaching and assessment practice. Because in our country, there are two major streams. One is literature and the other one is applied linguistics and ELT. So we also have that thing in our mind that after doing their masters in applied linguistics and ELT, well, most of the students will be teachers. So upcoming teachers should know this, how they can also engage or try to engage their students from the beginning. Why not? So yes, that is also something. And there are a lot of advantages of reflection diaries. Different research projects reveal different ideas. And here I'd like to mention three that definitely it has been found that students are actively engaged, throughout the entire learning process. And it definitely may increase students' interest and empower them to be more responsible to their own learning. So making them more responsible with their own learning is very, very important. And apart from that, reflection. The main word is actually reflection, which should be there in their diaries. So they should reflect the way they want, and they should reflect the way the teacher wants, of course. So there should be some guided instructions, obviously. And yes, they may also share ideas through speaking if we can encourage them. So yes, of course, after at the end of this semester, after completing their diaries, they can always share their ideas in front of the class. And why in front of the class?
Tina, sorry,
why
we
not?
can't see your slide. You have something in the middle of your slide. Thank you. Thank you. Perfect.
Okay. Then yes, of course, students should come up with their ideas through an oral presentation. Through oral presentations, why not if they want? And as teachers, we can also encourage them for doing that. Now, what is needed actually regarding this reflection diaries and e-portfolios? Obviously, there are two specific things which I'd like to focus on. The first one is feedback, building up feedbacks on their work. So this is important. Reflection is very, very important. And the next thing is proper documentation. So yes, proper documentation is important, because if they miss something at the middle, then obviously it will be quite difficult for them to present that what they missed actually at the middle or something like that. So yes, proper documentation and proper guidance is obviously needed from the teacher. Now, the next assessment tool, which is very, very interesting according to me personally, is using individual assessment cards. As I have mentioned, that it was totally new for me. I haven't heard about this individual assessment card in my entire life before this move. And I was so thrilled, to come up with this idea. And finally, I found that this assessment card is very, very effective in terms of receiving instant feedback. And obviously, it can also gradually measure students' learning, students' understanding. Now, what is the background and purpose? Here, I would like to specifically focus one name, which is Clive Lovelock. Actually, he is an English teacher at a Japanese university, and he developed this process, interesting process in 1996. And we have been shared the articles through the MOOC course. And his purpose was to make students learn basic communication skills and also developing their learning skills. So that was his focus. But yes, of course, this individual assessment card can be used for various other purposes as well. Now, there are basically four guiding principles, if I have to share. Four guiding principles in terms of using these assessment cards. And if we start from the top, then the first thing is obtaining, storing, retrieving, and using the language. And here, using the language, we obviously mean using English language as an English teacher. And then yes, active involvement in the entire learning process. And then gradually, if moving on to consciousness raising. So how the students become conscious about using that language, how are they getting conscious in terms of measuring their gradual performances, and then finally, using different types of social strategies and communication strategies. So these four are the guiding principles which should be there while customizing this assessment card. Well, I would come regarding the customization process later, but this is the original Lovelock's assessment card. This is how the card looks actually. This is interesting, and as you can see, there are a lot of information over here. Students can input a lot of things, starting from their name to their attendance, to their class. And yes, of course, there are several columns: assignment, date due. If they submit late, well, obviously they can mark over there, write the date over there. Then they can also mention the date when they are rewriting their assignment, and their score. There is a column for their score. And finally, there's a column for the comment actually, which should be filled up by the teacher. But the interesting thing is, this is such an assessment card, which is expected to be filled up by the student on his or her own. So here actually, I found it most interesting. That's because, the students themselves will fill up this assessment card, and each of them will have an individual assessment card. That was the idea of Lovelock, and this is the other side of the assessment card. The assessment card has two sides actually. This is the other side, and this is also very interesting. As you can see here, he has included some keys, like with E, speaks English; with C, routine classroom communication in English; with Q, whether they have asked questions or not. Well, the interesting thing is, if a student feels that he or she has used English the entire period, then obviously he can put a tick in the first column, which has the title plus points. And if he or she feels that, no, I haven't spoken in English the entire period, then obviously he can put a tick over here in the minus column. So this is the beauty of this card. But I must say that I have tried to customize this. I customize this card in my own way. But before that, I would like to mention some very important points or things that should be noted. Well, obviously, these won't be effective if the students don't actually get proper explanation from the teacher. So at the beginning, of the lesson or at the beginning of this semester, students should have proper guidelines. Students should know actually clearly about this specific strategy, about all these specific strategies, of course, listed on the card, and why they should use them. So why, what is the purpose, how they will be benefited, all these should be explained clearly at the beginning of the class or this semester. And of course, in every class, an activity lasts from 10 to 15 minutes, and obviously it varies from lesson to lesson or topic to topic. But this is an easy way for students to collect points. So if we can ensure that this is one of the most interesting ways to collect points, then students will be highly motivated and they would start collecting points on their own. And also it's important to set a maximum score based on the card. So this instruction could be also added. And this is how I customized my assessment card. As you can see, here actually I have included 18 classes, because usually in one semester in my university we have around 18 to 24 classes, and this was the shortest semester in my university. That's because we have two huge religious festivals in the same semester, so we couldn't have more than 18 classes. But usually we have 22 to 24 classes per semester. These are the keys which I have included, and my students actually tried to fill up the card on their own. Now, the last strategy which I would like to focus on is using progressive I can statements, which is very much effective to promote learner confidence. And well, obviously, I like the image that I have added over here, whether I can or I can. Well, that is the question, because as an English language teacher, I often listen to this type of thing from my students that, ma'am, I can't do this, or I can't write properly. I don't know how to use, how to structure a paragraph. I don't know how to conclude my essay, or I don't know what is the difference between a descriptive or compare contrast essay or something like that. So there are a lot of questions, and what to do with that. Well, before getting into this, I would like to mention that this strategy using I can statement has been developed by Fife McDuff, Khadija Al-Haiki, and Caroline Lindsay to build students' confidence in their ability to write in English. So this particular strategy has been developed by all these three people in terms of developing students' confidence to write in English. And obviously to create opportunities for students to state where they perceive they're able to do, which can be referred to as I can statements. For example, after completing a descriptive or narrative essay, well, students may come up with a statement like this: I can write a descriptive essay, or I can structure a descriptive essay, something like that. Or simply, I can write my daily activities in English. Simple, diary writing or something like that. Well, this is the beauty actually of this strategy. It doesn't include any specific kind of lesson. It doesn't give us a boundary. Rather, we can think beyond boundary, and we can include our students the way we want, and we can motivate our students to come up with statements like this, whether you can do it or not. But how can it work? Well, these are some very important points which I believe teachers should have in his or her mind while planning to use this kind of strategy, specifically this strategy. Well, teachers can present single I can statement associated with the task. And also, well, a teacher can present a list of I can statements that students can copy, check off, and read out loud, as they progress through an activity. And if we have a higher level of students, for example, the students who have a certain level of fluency, then the teacher can present I can statements in scrambled order. Why not? If I feel that my class is actually very good in speaking in English, then I can request them to, serial or gradually come up with the statements, I can statements, and I can present the I can statements in scrambled order, and they can number the statements. And for more advanced learners, of course, we may even offer to add I can statements. Well, that also would be interesting if we can offer, if we can request our students to come up with their own I can statements So that could also be interesting, specifically with the more advanced level of learners. This is an example activity which I did actually in my reading comprehension class, reading and writing, that is the course which we have in my university. So well, there was a passage or comprehension regarding Athens and Sparta. So there was a passage regarding this, and well, I asked this question to them: where would you rather live and why? Well, they were supposed to choose between Athens and Sparta, and they had to come up with the reason why did they choose either Athens or Sparta. Well, these were the two things that I mentioned. After reading the handout, write an argumentative essay, and you'll have to assess your writing with the help of I can statements. So I actually gave them a list of I can statements, and they had to, come up with their own assessment. And yes, of course, there are several learning objectives. Well, obviously introducing precise claim, distinguish the claim from alternate or opposing claims when we think of arguments. And yes, obviously, these are some points which should be in front of us so that we have the specific objectives in front of us as these were something to support claims in an analysis. So yes, of course, using words, proper use, vocabularies, phrases, clause was important. Establishing and maintaining formal style was also important. And obviously providing a concluding statement apart from all these. So these were the objectives in front of, which were in front all of us. And yes, of course, these are the levels to which we can try if we have a basic level of learners in the class. And yes, so this is a bottom-up approach. Level 1 is at the bottom, where we can, provide them two statements like I can identify an in a text. If a student can feel, yes, he can do this, and the other one, he can also identify claims from a given text with reasons, then obviously he can take level 1 and he can move on to level 2. If he feels that, yes, I can, choose an argument to support claim, I can choose claims from a given text with reasons, then yes, obviously he can move on to level 3. So this is how he or she can move, from 1 to level 3, 4, 5, and it depends on us actually. Now, I have personally have talked about so many advantages regarding using alternative assessments, but there, some drawbacks as well. There are some challenges which I would definitely like to mention, like it's sometimes hard to evaluate, even after getting all these statements, even after receiving their assessment cards, it sometimes get difficult to evaluate because there are a lot of other things which are also in our conscious mind as teachers. So yes, and the process can be costly sometimes in terms of, providing time, equipments, materials, facilities, or funds. Sometimes it could be costly. When we were in physical classrooms, in one of the courses, I found that students were, competing how to decorate their album, how to decorate their, huge, bulky portfolio. So yes, sometimes that could be a pressure. And rating process is also sometimes more subjective than traditional exams. Of course, in traditional exam, we don't have that kind of hassle. We receive student scripts and we assess them. We have some specific criteria, we have rubrics, and we assess them. But here, actually, the rating process could be sometimes more subjective. And yes, inaccurate reflection of students' progress and knowledge definitely may hamper us sometimes. Although I didn't face this one that much, but still I have that feeling with specifically 2 or 3 students. Yes, I didn't know actually how I would assess their personal reflection. So that sometimes is a bit confusing, of course. Now, yes, of course, as teacher, I also have some responsibilities. After receiving the feedback, noting down the important points is important as a teacher. And if needed, I need to improvise. I have to improvise the lesson plan. And of course, apart from all these, the final thing is how to improve my teaching on the basis of my students' feedback. That is the most important thing. And yes, of course, I, as a teacher, can get a lot of help in terms of using all these strategies strategies to develop myself, both personally and professionally. And well, if I have to mention the online platforms, there are thousands of platforms, hundreds of platforms through which we can engage our students. And specifically, I'd like to mention three: Moodle, Padlet, Google Classroom, because Moodle and Google Classroom, these are the two platforms which we use in our university, in Daffodil International University. And Moodle has been updated in such an exclusive way. Every semester, we find an updated version, So we are very much enjoying using Moodle in terms of collecting students' feedback, and through questionnaire, through surveys, and a lot of other things. I personally like to embed Padlet in Moodle. So I try to receive constructive feedback from students through Padlet. And yes, Google Classroom is also very much in use in my university. And yes, apart from all these, we have a lot of other roles, of course, not only to teach our students and not only to receive feedback, but of course, at the same time, we are controller, we are organizer, we are participant, obviously, with our students, we are assessor, prompter, we serve as resource persons, of course, we are tutors, observer, of course. So, well, this never ends. And yes, finally, I'd like to end with this idea that we should students know. So that is also important. We don't know sometimes what our students know. So knowing what students know is very important. And yes, definitely, I'd like to end my presentation with that idea. And now I'd love to answer your queries if you have any. Thank you so much for your valuable time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tina. Wow, some really interesting ideas. We have time for questions, and I'm going to stop sharing screen. Maybe we can see each other a little bit this way. Great job, Tina. Thank you so much. There were some questions. Melly, you want to take over from there? And
one of the questions was, do you ever collect the cards, or are they strictly for the students to follow? That was from Linda, I believe.
Sorry, Melly, could you please repeat the question for me one more time?
For the assessment cards, do you collect those cards and look through them, or do the students keep those cards?
Oh, that's an important question. Yes, the students actually keep the cards with them. They keep the cards with them, but the thing is, every time when after the class, when the lesson is completed, well, as teacher, I click pictures how they filled up that specific class record. So that's also important because we never know what they would do after going to their home. We don't know what they will be coming up in the next class, and how they would use that card, whether they would use pencil or they're going to fill up that card with pen or something like that. Usually my students fill up the card with pen. And yes, of course, every time after ending a class, I click a picture of that card. So that is how I try to keep the record. That's it.
And then Van Lei and Fayez have the same question. Could you show an example of a portfolio?
Ooh. Good.
But actually, I'm not over here, and
maybe I can modify their question. You said
because I'm not actually in my Moodle at this moment, but yes, I would definitely like to show specifically the Padlet, which is almost ready actually, because they are sharing their weekly learning, not their everyday learning, but their weekly learning, apart from discussion forum. So, well, sometimes including different types of things, embedding things also interest them, because if they continuously know that every day I'll have to do this, then sometimes they get bored. Yes, we have to change the strategy sometimes. So, well, I have something, but it's not open. I have not opened it yet. But if you want, then I may show my Moodle course actually with you, specifically the Padlet through which they are sharing their feedback. But that'll take a little time.
Actually, Beatrice had a similar question. Which tools do your students use to create their portfolios? You mentioned Padlet. Do you have other tools?
Well, this time my students actually are using their Google Drive folder actually. My university also has, I don't know what it's called technically, but my university has assured us to use the Google Drive actually, which is associated with the university email address, you know, so we have a lot of spaces over there. So they encourage us to use that Google Drive. So my students actually are preparing their portfolios over there. They're maintaining, they have opened up their files over there, and they are, you know, including their stuffs over there, they're writing information over there. What did they learn every day? What two things probably? Well, there are some specific questions which I have added for them. For example, what two things did you learn from the lesson today? Or what is the one thing that you would like to learn more regarding this topic in future? And how actually you want to, I mean, improve yourself regarding the coursework, because there are some courses, well, obviously, which students don't like sometimes. I can't say that students like all the courses. It's not possible. So there are some courses which they don't like. For example, some grammar courses, they never like grammar courses. So how actually they want to learn grammar? So this is one question which they would love to, I mean, answer. They write a lot of things. Well, of course, sometimes they have a lot of grammar errors, but still they enjoy. So that is how I am planning, and I'm trying to engage my students.
Tina, do you want to go find that Padlet thing, or do you want to try to put it on our Facebook later? What would you like to do? Up to you, friend.
Oh, no, you're muted. You're muted, Tina. Tina.
You're muted, Tina. We can't hear you, dear.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yes, of course. I'd like to post it in our Facebook group page. Why not? The entire Padlet. I have
the presentation.
Yes, I have.
Great. Yeah, I know you get under pressure because you know all these people are sitting in front of you and you don't want them to have to wait. It's Zoom, you know. But
Yes.
but the good news is that there's a lot of interest in your ideas and ways in which you can deliver alternative assessment and in projects. You know, I mean, I think underneath it, your topic is not projects, but you're talking about some very groovy topics that the students are going to get very kind of enthusiastic about doing, you know, a tourism brochure or a presentation for a live audience that's not the teacher, not their classmates. Oh my goodness, so many great ideas there. Thank you.
Yes, personally, I have never taught, you know, tourism and hospitality management students, but I have heard from my colleagues that they actually made their students develop travel brochure with some specific words. You know, we all know that tourism has their own kind of vocabularies, and they have their own dictionaries even. So why not coming up with their own ideas? So that's interesting. This is how students are engaged, and why giving them, you know, traditional types of assessments every time, assignments every time? Because well, sometimes we have that kind of fear that they would copy from Google or any other resources, and sometimes we also fear that, yes, as they're online, you know, so we have that kind of fear. So why not coming up with some interesting ideas? And yes, as English language teachers, we have to move from department to department, and that also encourages us, you know, to come up with different ideas, because as an English language teacher, I have to teach textile engineering department students. So how would I teach them? Because they don't like English. They don't like, you know, learning English words, the grammar, the structures. Well, they feel a bit bored. So what can I do? So my university actually has a plan, you know, to specifically focus on individual programs so that we can ensure, effective teaching learning environment.
Can I add something here, please?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much, Tina, for sharing all this. It actually resonates with what I'm doing these days. I'm dealing with technical English. So what I started this semester with, like, audience analysis. and the document analysis. And as a starting point, I used some brochures, especially traveling and medical brochures. And I asked my students to evaluate, to assess the audience needs for that, and the design needs, the textual needs of audiences, and the doc, and I told them to analyze the whole document of that. That's why I was really interested in looking at one of your examples, like how your students were able to design a brochure like that. That was great. Some of the great ideas you have. Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to follow Mohammed's note because, and this came up, Melly talked about taking the students to a museum. The idea of having authentic audience. So often the students are performing for the teacher and it's performance. It's fake. The same when it's their when it's the classmates, right? It's not real. So part of our job, and I did this in Indonesia, I had so much fun with the students to bring in real people, and only 3 or 4. It doesn't have to be a whole room filled with, you know, foreigners or different people from the students and the teacher, but 1 or 2 is going to change the whole social environment to have somebody there who's real. Yeah. And to use English with people that have English, but they don't know them. Yeah, this is more authentic, and that raises the anxiety a bit, okay? But it also makes it authentic. And you videotape them, right? While they're performing for these, and you'll notice their English is totally different when they're talking to, let's say, a travel agent in Dhaka who is your sister's husband. You know, you bring him in to be the audience. You know, it's okay. Anybody. A warm body who speaks English, yeah? And so their behavior changes completely when it's authentic. Yeah, thank you.
And we have another question from Ashley in the chat. How familiar with digital tools were your students before they were in your class? Ashley works with refugees, and many need to learn how to use a smartphone or a computer first. And she says, I love the variety of tools you used and timelines.
Yes, that's an important question, of course. And how much actually are my students know about using technology or the devices? Well, I must say that in Bangladesh specifically, almost all the people have smartphones, you know. So they know a lot about smartphones, even more than me. Of course, I must admit that my students know more than me. But the thing is how to use these specific tools. For example, I have mentioned a Moodle and Google Classroom. Well, they are not familiar with all these, specific platforms, of course. Although they know how to use smartphones smartly, but they are not familiar with Moodle. So what do we do actually in our university? There is a wonderful thing. After getting admitted into Daffodil International University, there is something, which we call pre-session or something like that. Well, after getting admitted over here, all these students actually go through some basic training before entering into the coursework. So they usually do the training for 1 month. And during that period, they actually receive training regarding how to use Moodle, how to create your own account, how to use Google Classroom, how you can use the common forum that we have at our university. And, starting from etiquettes to, a lot of other things, how you would be able to, in the classroom with your Daffodil email address, why you can't use your personal email address while joining the classroom. Well, we use Google Meet actually as the platform in terms of conducting the classes. So there are a lot of things actually which we try to do. But even after doing all these things, I must say that when they are in the very first semester, when they directly enter into the coursework, sometimes we get that kind of feeling that they are, they don't know how to use the platforms. They don't know how to use even the forum. They don't know how to write over there, whether they're going to paste something from somewhere or they would attach a file. Even how to attach a file, that's also a question. How to, sit for the exams. That is the most crucial question that we receive. And this semester I'm teaching freshers, the first semester students. So I had, 2 classes, almost 3 hours. where I discuss what are the ways through which, well, you will be attempting exams. So yes, there are a lot of questions, but I believe that it's possible if we have the dedication as teachers, and apart from only one student, all my 34 students attempted the first class test, I mean, the first university life successfully. So that's wonderful, I believe.
Van had a really good idea in the chat about her students. Van, do you want to tell us about this, that you use your students for the training?
Yeah. So I sometimes encourage my students, introduce them to some kind of tools or apps that I would like them to use in class. And as you know, many of them will not be familiar with those, but some of them actually know about the tools or the apps. So I encourage them, or each of them, to at least get to know one or two, and any of them would like to volunteer to show how to use the tools, or how you have been able to use the tools to the class, and get some bonus points for that. And then those who are interested and excels about using the tools are very eager to show the class. I encourage them either to express it in the home language or in English if they can, or they can use mixed languages. And so they either practice speaking presenting either in the home language or in English. Both are kind of very helpful for their language development skills. So that is what I usually do.
In relation to that, I would like to add, that's wonderful. In relation to this, I'd like to add that this semester, they are also preparing an own album, actually. I mean, audio video album. They're recording their performances. It's a group work, actually. And there also I found this thing, I mean, the thing that you have just mentioned, the strategy, that when I mentioned this, that you'll have to edit your videos a little, not that much. Of course, we are not teaching and learning video editing. Of course, it's not like that, but still a little. I mean, a certain amount of editing is needed if you want to look, good, or to get some I mean, bonus points, as you have just mentioned. So some of the students were very scared because they have never heard about even editing. They were so scared that we didn't do editing and we don't know how to edit. Actually, we are totally new. But suddenly I found that there was someone in each and every group. Actually, there were people who know actually different types of software. So many softwares. They I mean, in a moment, they actually come up with so many softwares in the chat box that even I don't know the name of some softwares, actually. So they were very happy. They, I mean, took the responsibility. They became the leader. They would actually teach the other students how to edit their videos. And that is how they are going to compile their, assignment this time. So yes, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah. I think the students are more of an expert than I myself am. Some of them at least. Yeah.
The tech skills are different from language skills. So often the ones who are good at language aren't good at the tech. So, and vice versa. So you find out somebody has, their English is low, but they really understand a platform like Moodle, and they can communicate, and they're the front row student, not the back row student, right? And it's so exciting to see this happen. And I think the pandemic, in a way, has created this possibility for these kind of nerdy, not very good language students to become rock stars, because that's done. They know how to do it.
They should be proud of some of the areas in learning so that they can help them to boost their confidence and motivation to improve other aspects of their learnings. Yeah. And sometimes I can do the grouping so that they can work in groups to create one video, for example, and some are good at languages, can speak more, but some are good at technologies, can help. And so they learn from each other.
Thank you so much. Wow. I see our time tick, tick, tick. I always feel like the mean mother because I have to say, we have to say goodbye. But I want to say thank yous to everyone for this discussion. And I can stay on for another 5 minutes or 10 minutes if needed. Tina, what a wonderful presentation. Thank you so much for your ideas, for engaging us in the discussion. So much to talk about. Assessment's usually boring, right, Melly, right, Linda? Thank you all for coming.
Thank you so much. I must thank you actually for
Oh.
giving me this wonderful opportunity. Thank you.
We learn from each other. It's very, very nice opportunity. Thank you all.
I would like to thank everyone, although I missed the initial part. However, whatever I understood, it was really interesting. And regarding the portfolio, I was just listening to you know, in my school, what we do, I mean, it's an Apple school where there is pages. Apple has an app pages, and very recently they have introduced templates, and it's such an easy way of creating portfolios. You can embed videos, you can record your voice, you can write. It has multiple options and as easy as water. This is with the Apple app. They have started very recently, and my students are so overexcited in creating their portfolio. Even if I don't tell them, they'll dump things over there. So that's how one aspect of portfolio that how we use. And also, you know, Microsoft has one option, OneNote, a very easy way of portfolio.
Thank you, Banani.
OneNote.
OneNote, yes.
And the
You
other,
can
the
add
previous
your-
app that you mentioned, what is it?
That is Pages, Pages. If you download, if you go to your Mac, or maybe if you have an iPad, if you go to Pages, Pages, usual Pages, it's GES.
S?
Yes,
Pages?
yes. Pages, page. How we use page? Yes, that's what.
Yeah, could you write onto the chat?
Yeah. Liz wrote it. Pages.
Okay, yeah, already Pages. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
with
you.
with a pen as an icon. If you explore that, it's very easy, user friendly, and I mean, a person like me who doesn't know anything, even if I keep playing, I'm able to record my voice. Sometimes they write their essay, and who has the time to sit and correct? I quickly click onto the mic and I give my feedback. Khalas, that's it. That's how we do it. It's very easy.
Beautiful.
So
The ways.
Can it be used on the iPhone or only on iPad?
iPad and MacBook. iPhone, actually, we don't allow students to use phones in the class. It's all of them have to have their own iPads, and we teachers have our MacBook, and our company gives us the rights to use. They pay for us. And
Nice.
yes, so that's how it's very easy. And
we're all going to move to the Gulf and work with you, Banani.
That's another pleasure, and in some way we are lucky in that way. That's true.
Right.
Yes.
Very nice to have you all today. I hope you have a great day. Thank you for coming. Tina, thank you again. Bye for now.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Melina,
Thank you so much.
bye.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Rate you.
Bye.
Bye.